You know, after 43 years on this bench, I've heard cases that test every fiber of what it means to be human: greed, loss, betrayal, and sometimes the quiet miracles that happen when grief meets grace. But on that overcast Wednesday in April, a widow walked into my courtroom suing her deceased husband, or rather his estate, in a way that turned the room upside down and left me, a judge who's supposed to stay composed, fighting back tears in front of everyone. This wasn't about money or property in the usual sense. It was about a promise made in sickness and in health, a final wish ignored after death, and a wife's desperate fight to honor the man she loved even when the law seemed stacked against her. The verdict? It wasn't just a ruling. It was a moment of raw human justice that reminded us all why compassion has to win sometimes. Before I take you through every heartbreaking detail, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button right now. Seriously, click it and drop a comment telling me if you've ever fought for someone's last wish. You're going to want to stick around for this one. I've been a family court judge in Boston, Massachusetts since the early 80s. That's 43 years of watching families fracture and sometimes heal right before my eyes. Every morning I get up at dawn, make my tea, Earl Grey, one sugar, the way my late mother used to, and remind myself that the robe doesn't make me invincible. It just gives me the chance to do right by people. My clerk, Robert, who's been with me for 22 years, knows when a case is going to hit hard. That April morning, he handed me the file with a quiet, "This one's different, Judge. She's not angry. She's broken." The docket looked ordinary at first. Custody tweaks, small claims, a few wills contested. But her case stood out. Margaret Hayes versus the estate of Robert Hayes. A widow suing her own husband's estate for enforcement of a verbal promise made during his final days. No lawyers, just her and the executor, their only son, who was defending the estate. I felt the weight before I even called it. At 10:15, Robert announced Margaret Hayes versus estate of Robert Hayes. She rose from the front row, mid-60s, silver hair in a neat bun, wearing the same navy dress she'd probably worn to his funeral months earlier. Her hands shook slightly as she approached the bench, but her eyes were steady, full of a quiet determination that comes from loving someone through the worst. Her son, Michael, late 30s, suit-pressed, face tight with conflict, stood opposite her. He looked torn, like he hated being there. I started soft. "Mrs. Hayes, you're suing your late husband's estate to enforce a promise he made before he passed. Can you tell the court what that promise was?" She took a breath, voice low but clear. "Your Honor, Robert, my Bobby was diagnosed with ALS 3 years ago. We fought it every day. Toward the end, when he couldn't speak much anymore, he wrote notes. One note said, 'Maggie, if I go first, make sure the house goes to you outright. No trusts, no conditions. You've earned it. Promise me.' I promised, but after he died, the will, written years before, left the house in a trust for our son Michael, with me having lifetime rights but no full ownership. Michael won't release it, says it's what Dad wanted, but it wasn't, not at the end." The courtroom fell heavy quiet. Michael shifted. I turned to him. "Mr. Hayes, your position?" He cleared his throat. "Your Honor, the will is legal. Dad wrote it when he was healthy. Mom's claiming a verbal promise from when he was not himself. I love her, but I can't just rewrite the estate. It's for my kids someday." I nodded, letting the words settle. "Mrs. Hayes, go on. What happened in those final months?" Her eyes filled, but she didn't break. "We were married 42 years. He worked construction his whole life, all hands like sandpaper, heart like gold. When the disease took his voice, we'd sit by the window. He'd squeeze my hand 3 times, our code for I love you. One night he wrote that note about the house. I read it aloud. He nodded, tears in his eyes. 'Promise,' he mouthed. I promised. But the trust ties my hands. I can't sell if I need care, can't leave it to charity like we talked about. It's not about the money. It's about honoring his last clear wish." Tears were starting now, hers silent at first. Michael's jaw clenched. I saw his eyes glisten too. I felt my own chest tighten. I've lost people close. I know what those final promises mean. Let me stop here for a second. Have you ever made a promise to someone dying that the world tried to ignore afterward? Drop a comment right now and tell me, did you fight for it? And if this is pulling at your heartstrings already, hit that like button, because what I'm about to reveal next is going to change everything about this case. I looked back at Margaret. Did anyone witness this promise? She nodded slowly. Our neighbor, Mrs. Callahan. She was there that night, helping with his meds. She saw the note, heard me promise. Michael spoke up, voice cracking. Mom, I didn't know about the note. You never showed me. I thought the will was final. Dad always said the house was for the grandkids. Margaret turned to him, tears flowing freely. I didn't show you because I didn't want to force you. I hoped you'd see it in your heart. But when you refused to amend the trust, I had to come here. For Bobby. The room was thick with emotion. Sniffles from the gallery, Robert dabbing his eyes discreetly. I thought of my own vows, how death doesn't end love. It just changes its shape. Mrs. Hayes, I said, the law favors written wills. Verbal promises in extremis are hard to enforce, but this court sees more than paper. It sees people. I paused, looking between them. Michael, your father was dying. He trusted your mother with his final words. Are you really going to let bureaucracy override that? Michael bowed his head. No, Your Honor, I was wrong. Mom, I'm sorry. We'll amend the trust. The house is yours, fully, like Dad wanted. Margaret let out a sob, not of pain, but release. She reached across, took his hand. Thank you, son, for him. I didn't bang the gavel hard, just a gentle tap. Case resolved by agreement. The estate will amend to grant full ownership to Mrs. Hayes per the deceased's final expressed wish, and Michael, honor that promise every day you visit her. As they hugged, right there in court, tears flowed openly. The gallery applauded softly, a wave of shared humanity. Months later, Margaret sent a photo, her in the garden Bobby loved, smiling again. Michael wrote, Judge, that day saved our family. Mom's at peace. Thank you for seeing his voice when we couldn't. Stories like this remind us death ends a life, but not the promises made in it. True justice isn't blind, it's compassionate. It listens to the whispers of the heart when the law is silent. If this touched you, if you believe love deserves to be honored beyond the grave, hit that like button, subscribe for more decoded truths from the bench, and share this with someone grieving a promise. Comment below, what's a final wish you've kept? Thank you for listening. God bless. Justice isn't always in the books. Sometimes it's in the tears, the hugs, and the courage to make it right. Check the next video. Another courtroom heartstopper awaits. Take care and hold your promises close.